but I swear like a sailor, I do.
I actually have a top that says I swear like a sailor.
I need that in my life because then people don't have to be like, I'm like, yeah, all right, get over it. I swear, embrace it. When I first met Stuart, he used to be like, you swear a lot. And now I'm like, you swear too much. You need to tame it. It does feel satisfying though, does it? Sometimes you do need, if you stub your toe, you need at least one fuck. Do you know what I mean? To get it.
Yeah,
Yes.
it just needs to have some more oomph behind it. Yeah,
Does,
you get
doesn't
it.
it? Yeah.
Although I would say I actually have not heard you swear that much. So maybe you've been holding
Oh,
it back from me.
I have. I'm tame. I've I'm being all well behaved. Because some people get really offended by it, can't they?
I think with swear words, it's my opinion, it depends on how you use them. If it's a well-placed swear word, it can be really humorous or it can
Yes.
really get the message across that like another word can't.
Can be
But
very effective.
yeah. But if you're just using swear words for the sake of using swear words all the time, then
Mm-hmm.
they lose the impact.
Yes. When it feels like you have no other language, yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah,
how about you today?
I feel discombobulated that we're recording on a Thursday at 4 p.m. We used to record in the afternoon. I don't know, for whatever reason, it's throwing me a little bit. But you
Yeah.
must feel thrown because you have just literally come from work.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I feel a bit, I feel like
Glazed
I
look in
look,
your eye.
yeah, I feel like I do look a little bit spaced out today and a bit disheveled. And that's how I feel. Yeah. It's been a busy day at work. And I thought I'll give myself half an hour, just compose myself, relax, lie on the bed, shut my eyes for a bit,
Mm-hmm.
and then let's record. Let's go, baby.
You're going to give us your best stuff, aren't you? This is going to be the best one yet.
To be honest, I might just brain fart this whole episode. That's how I feel right now. And if I do, I do. And
Today, we are talking about, I don't know how we're going to title it, but we're basically talking about being misunderstood or feeling misunderstood.
yeah,
And at first, I was thinking
it's
about
fun.
it. Sorry, Becca.
I'm
Did you want
laughing because if I actually make no sense at all today because I'm that tired, I might be
you'd
quite
be
misunderstood.
misunderstood? If you're going to do it, now's the time, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like that.
Perfect. See, it was all planned.
And I was thinking, oh yeah, well, there's things I can say to that. But then I was thinking about it more, and I think I maybe only have like 10 minutes worth of things to say. So we'll see how.
Katie chose this topic as well. So
It's because I was looking through the list and I thought nothing else is really jumping out at me.
I wanted to put a disclaimer, is that the right word, from the beginning that I actually don't think there's always a problem with being misunderstood. I don't think that is the issue in itself because I think you can misunderstand someone or someone can misunderstand you. And I think you can communicate that and it not be a problem. I think for me, what I'm talking about today is like the context of repeatedly being misunderstood to the point where you are explaining to someone how it feels for you. And because they're continuously not getting it or not trying to get it, it feels intentional. And then it moves from feeling misunderstood to then feeling dismissed by another person.
Mhm.
And I think that for me is where the issue is more than just being misunderstood.
Yes, very well said. I have someone in my life who I always feel misunderstood around to the point where I withhold information because I just have lowered the expectation, or at least I recognize that I can't get certain things from this person. So it's easier for me to just keep the relationship surface level so that I don't put myself in this same position of feeling let down by not getting the validation that I need. Because I was thinking about how it shows up for me now. So it shows up, as I say, in certain relationship dynamics. Through recovery and through working with a coach, I really began to recognize how important it is for me to feel validated, as I think it is for anyone, but how that can actually be, in some instances, enough for me to feel supported. I'll actually get frustrated if people are just trying to fix things because I'm like, I just need you to
Mhm.
hear me. I just need to feel like you hear me and you understand what I'm saying and that I make sense to you. The way I experience it now outside of relationship dynamics is normally, if I'm being completely honest, is entwined with when I'm going through bouts of depression. I then feel very isolated. I feel very alone. And I feel like, as a human being, misunderstood. It feels quite heavy for me. I find it hard to feel grounded. I find it hard to gauge where I am because it's a feeling and it's really hard to explain. And
Mm.
if you haven't experienced depression, it's really difficult to explain it to anyone. But you do feel like you have no real sense of who you are.
Mm.
That's how I mainly experience it now. I've done a lot of work on trying to be okay with being misunderstood with people that aren't important to me or aren't in my life. That's something I try and practice now, letting people have their opinions and their thoughts of me, whether it's right or wrong, and letting that exist for them without feeling like I have to correct it and that it consumes me that they have this opinion of me that's not true.
What you said there felt so much around like connection to other people about because we all have this drive, don't we, to want to be understood by other people and to because that makes us feel like we belong, we're part of something, we're
Hmm.
connected. When I was thinking about how this showed up for me in when I had an eating disorder, it made me think there is a couple of specific ways, very concrete ways it showed up, and I will go into them. But before that, I feel like someone who's living with an eating disorder, it's quite easy to feel misunderstood, I think, because, and I'm talking from my experience, from experience of like working with people with eating disorders and just general research into eating disorders, that there seems to be a common theme that people with eating disorders have an external locus of evaluation, which is basically like a fancy way of saying like other people's opinions and judgments matter, like other people's perspectives determines how we judge ourselves. And I can relate to that from my experience. And I think then when we place so much importance on what other people think, it's really easy to feel misunderstood because if you were thinking something and someone says something different, then automatically there's like this clash, isn't there, between their values and their opinions and yours. And if your sense of self-worth is put so much on what other people think, really shakes up your sense of self and like who are you? So I think it's helpful to just bear that in mind because I think a big part of recovery is developing that sense of self and self-worth away from what other people think. And it's something that I'm still working on now, even though I class myself as recovered from an eating disorder. It's definitely something that is a continuous practice, I think, for me to trust myself and my opinions and to put that out there, which is why I think this podcast is like such a good challenge for me to do that.
It's true, you're right. Building that sense of self, that self trust, but also knowing of myself. Because I think when you don't know yourself, when you don't really know who you are authentically outside of the attachment that we make with our body and the way that we look and the way that we feel we have to present ourselves, we're forever grasping at things, aren't we? We're not solid in anything. And recovery and untangling all of that, which when I say it like that always sounds so oversimplified, but the process of doing that You're able to build that sense of self. You have that base, you have that foundation, which to me, I think is my feisty inner ally that allows me to challenge when those feelings of being misunderstood show up for me. Because like you said at the beginning, the goal isn't to never feel like that. I think there's a lot tied into feeling accepted and feeling like we belong.
Something you said there about, what did you say? Like about like wanting to, no, like, can't remember the exact words.
I
You
was
said
like,
something
please
about
don't
wanting to
ask
like,
me again.
about wanting to like grasp onto something because you don't know who you are.
You attach because it's something to hold on to, because I didn't have any idea of who I was authentically outside of the way that I looked.
Yeah. It made me think about one of the things that I repeatedly felt misunderstood about during the time when I had an eating disorder. So thank you for setting me up for that smooth transition there, Katie.
You're welcome.
For me, it was whenever I would talk about my body and my body size and shape or compare myself to other people, because I used to do this a lot, in particular in relationships, like with my partner, I would say, oh, do my legs look like that woman's legs? Or do my arms look like that woman's arms? And this would really irritate partners. And I can totally see in hindsight now why that irritated. But often their response would be like, your body's beautiful. You're beautiful. Stop worrying about it. And that made me feel quite misunderstood because it was making the assumption that I didn't like my body or I hated my body, something like that. And actually, that wasn't really for me what it was about when I was comparing myself to other people. It wasn't because I hated how I looked. It was more that I didn't feel like I knew how I looked. I felt so dissociated from my body, which I think was a consequence of the sexual trauma I experienced, that I feel like I didn't really have any sense of who I was. And as an extension of that, I didn't really understand how I looked. So I was constantly looking externally and comparing myself to try and actually make some sense of who am I? If, for example, if you say my legs are bigger than hers or smaller than hers, that I can start to visually put some picture together of who I am, because without that, I didn't feel like I knew how to, which actually wasn't the right approach to go about it. And that sounds a bit harsh the way I said that, but it wasn't an effective way of going about it, because actually what I needed to do was do the opposite and go inwards and start working on my felt sense of self rather than trying to perceive who I was through other people. And I see that now, but at the time I didn't. And I can see that was me desperately trying to help myself in some way. But it really did make me feel really misunderstood when people said that, because I'd be like, you're not getting it. And I see it now. It was really body dysmorphia, wasn't it? Like I didn't actually know what size I was. And often how I thought I looked was very different to what partners or people would say. And that would really throw me off even more, because I would think I looked the same as a certain person. And I'd be like, no, you don't really look anything like that person. And then I would use that information to be like, see, I don't know who I am. So therefore I need to use these external guides to try and figure out, to make sense of what I look like and who I am. So it's a bit of a vicious circle, really. And that's why it wasn't really effective in the long run to do it that way. But yeah, that was a piece of misunderstanding for me.
That went a different direction, can I just say? You had me guessing.
I hope it made sense still.
It did. I just didn't expect you to go there. When you started talking about it, I thought you were going to say about how people telling you, the annoyance of people telling you, no, you look beautiful, you look amazing, you have a great body, da, da, da. And the frustration because you believe the complete opposite. More like, you're not seeing me clearly, you're lying to me, and it's frustrating me. I've talked before about how I really hated my body and I hated being in my body, and I had such a difficult time expressing that and it not just being met with dismissal or even just normalized to an extent of, yeah, we don't really like our bodies. We all have things we don't like. I always felt so frustrated with it because it felt like what I was experiencing felt different than that, because also the way that I was feeling about my body was impacting my day-to-day life. It wasn't just this moment of, oh, I don't like the way I look in this outfit. I was in this chronic state of being preoccupied with the way that my body looked and how people were perceiving me, and the vigilance that I was experiencing just minute by minute of being in my body and trying to explain that to someone, and it being met with, "What are you talking about? You look great."
Mm.
I can feel it like as anger in my chest. You're not listening to me. But I when I talk about it now, I can understand if someone's talking about their body like that, like especially if it's a loved one, someone you care about, you're going to want to make them feel better. You're going to want to comfort them. And the way that people do that with your body is by saying, like, "What are you talking about? You look amazing. You look lovely." I can understand the intention behind the comments.
Mm.
But for me, it was like, I don't need you to fix this. I just need you to listen to me. I need you to hear me, because that frustration of not being heard just sat there with me and it just festered. Trying to talk about my experience of binging and it being met with, yeah, I ate a whole pack of biscuits last week. I get it. No, you don't. No, you don't. That is different. I say this like this is a united feeling, but me just wanting to grab them and shake them and be like, "You're not listening. You don't understand how much food I'm eating." And then you're kind of left in this limbo of like, do I turn around and say, like, "No, no, I had," and list everything off, and then
Mhm.
leave myself open for an incredibly uncomfortable conversation or just like an awkward silence? Or do you just nod your head and say, "Mhm, yeah, sure," and
Mhm.
just another thing that we bury down and we keep and that festers. And I lost my train of thought there.
It's okay. I feel
I
like you
got
got your
wound
message
up.
across.
I got really wound up and then
Could feel it. Felt the energy.
thank you.
Out of curiosity, I do want to comment on that point as well, because that's something I considered as way of feeling misunderstood. What did you do in those situations? Like when somebody would be like, "Oh yeah, I ate however many biscuits last week." How did you approach it, or did you try various things?
I tried various things. It was mainly who did I mainly spoke to my mum about it,
Mhm.
and I can remember the first time she said it to me, I was quite dismissive of it. I didn't really say anything back. And then when she'd said it a few times before, I remember getting really irate
Mhm.
and being like, "No, you're not hearing me. That's nothing." And I remember listing off everything that I'd eaten, and she didn't know what to say. She didn't know what to say with that. But I remember feeling, I don't know why, this doesn't even make sense when I say this, but I remember feeling like, "Ha, told you. Told you didn't understand. Told you I was eating a lot of food. Told you."
Mhm.
Like it's like I'm trying to stick it to something I don't know.
A big part of you didn't want to be understood.
Maybe. That could be like, yeah. But it's weird. It's I think there's so many parts of you that intersect, don't they? And
Yes.
when I did turn around and say, "No, I've eaten all of this," I remember not feeling relief at saying it, still feeling quite angry about it. It didn't give me the
Yeah.
empowerment feeling.
Yeah. Which I asked that, not I asked that not as an attack on you at all,
Don't worry. Didn't take it like that.
because I think there's been times in the past during my eating disorder where I would have said, "Well, you don't understand me," and I wanted someone to understand me on the surface, but actually if I dug a little deeper and got really uncomfortably honest with myself, probably didn't want someone to understand me, because I think because of two reasons. One, if someone understood me, took away this feeling of like specialness. And
Mm.
I think eating disorders can warp our thinking to some extent, where actually, if I felt like people didn't understand me or didn't get it, it did make me feel superior or special in some kind of way. So that was one reason. And I think the other reason was then if somebody did actually truly understand me, then it would push me into a place where I would have to go a bit more inwards and I'd have to be vulnerable,
Mhm.
whereas if, oh, you don't understand me, doesn't matter. I can just continue in that train of thought and not really have to like unpack stuff. But if someone's really listened to you, I really do want to understand, or I really hear what you're saying, they then encourage you to go more
Mm.
into what's going on. And that's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I felt very how do I wanna word this? There's no way you could understand me, because if you could understand me, then there's no way you would love me. That's how
Mm,
I felt. There's no way you would still accept me. If you really understood the way that my brain worked and the way that I felt about myself and the way I behaved around food and the way that I thought and all of this stuff, if you really understood that, there's no part of me that believes that you would still be stood next to me.
mm,
So I guess there is this similar to what you said, there is a vulnerability that shows up in different ways.
yeah. Which is funny that you say that today in this episode, because it's similar to what I said last week, isn't it? Around if somebody actually knew how much I binged on, they wouldn't love me. But then opening up and sharing that did the opposite for me.
Mhm.
Um, that's one area I did feel misunderstood. What you've mentioned today around people not really understanding what binge eating is, or misusing the term like binge. That used to really piss me off, and like it really pissed me off. And I get that there's objective binges and there are subjective binges. So subjective binges are very much valid. And if you don't know what that is, we did talk about it in a previous episode, but you could eat a quote unquote like a smaller amount of food and still find that very distressing when you live with an eating disorder. But I think here I'm talking in the context of objective binges. And when I've tried to explain that to someone and then being sat at a party and someone's just had a few handfuls of crisps and gone, see, look, everybody binges, don't stress about it. And you're like, no, that's not what I mean when I binge.
Mm.
That would really wind me up. And I don't think that's other people's fault. I think it's just the culture that we're part of, that the term binge is used very loosely for lots of different things, not just food. People use it to binge watch a TV program or something, don't they? People
Mhm.
just use that term very freely. And I think the idea of quote unquote overeating, whatever that is for someone, like eating beyond fullness or eating more than what is socially acceptable in, is something that is so frowned upon that people feel bad for doing that, that they do term it as a binge, when actually there is a distinction between the two. And it used to feel like people just didn't really understand what it was I was going through. Um, I've worked with people when I used to work for Beats and the helpline, where people would call through. And obviously, I'm not going to share details for confidentiality, but I remember speaking to one person who had never really realized that what they were experiencing was binge eating and binge eating disorder until they were in that call, and had spent their whole life just being dismissed, or "Oh, everyone overeats at times," or don't stress about it, you're in a social situation, something like that. And then actually being on the phone to someone who could explain what binge eating disorder was and say, does this feel relatable to you? Was like an actual exhale, like a weight off their shoulders of realizing that they weren't just like this crazy person who was making something up and no one got it. It's just that they hadn't met anyone that had that understanding of what it was until that moment. Um, but obviously you highlighted today that that isn't always going to be the case when you share either, that you might not always get that connection and that feeling of being understood from sharing.
Yeah. And I think it is hard because I think, like anything, if it's not something you've experienced, then you are going to find it hard to a degree of understanding. And I get that. So I think it is quite tricky. So I felt misunderstood. There was a part of me that felt misunderstood about myself because I had gone from being someone who was heavily restrictive with food to then struggling with binge eating. I carried a lot of shame for that. And I carried a lot of frustration on the back of feeling misunderstood, in that I couldn't understand how that was my experience. I couldn't make sense of it. I couldn't understand it. And I felt like I was more misunderstood from others when I was struggling with the binge eating than I ever was when I was struggling with anorexia, because there is so much shame around binge eating. I think what you were saying, to a degree, there's certain behaviors around food that have been normalized. And so we don't even, for a lot of people, they don't even realize that what they're dealing with is an eating disorder or disordered eating. And then I think that just makes you feel like there's something wrong with you. And if you can't even make sense of yourself, then it's even harder to then ask for help and turn around to someone else and ask, not for them to make sense of you, but I don't know. Am I making sense?
Yeah, because I guess when you reach out to someone for support, you're not asking them to fix you, but I suppose you're putting your trust in that other person that they will be able to sit with you in it all and
Mm,
try to see your perspective and see what it's really like for you. And I guess if you're not feeling that from anywhere else in life, then start to internalize that you're wrong, you're the problem so much that then it can actually feel scary to go to reach out to a coach or a therapist or someone, because you worry that you're going to have the same experience. And oh my God, if you go to your therapist or your coach and they say that something that makes you feel misunderstood, the
mm.
ego can't take that, can it?
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Because it's interesting reflecting back on it. I didn't realize that this is, apart from obviously how we experience feeling misunderstood now, this is all hindsight. I did not appreciate this
Mm.
was going on at the time. I don't know whether you, yeah.
Yeah. I think some things yes and some things no. It's just the process of recovery, of realizing certain things more as the further down like recovery I
Mhm.
went.
Mhm.
But one thing that used to make me feel misunderstood as well, which I want to raise, is when people would say it's just a phase that you're going through, or people would say, oh, it's a response to the trauma, or it's a response to the divorce from my parents. So it's just a phase. You like once you get over that, you'll be fine. And I get what they were saying, like it's a way of coping with that. But that just really made me feel like, okay, even if it is to do with that, surely I need to go there. I need to address it rather than
Mhm.
just brushing it aside. Or people just brushing it aside as if it's a phase. Like, oh, a lot of young women and young girls go through these insecurities with their bodies, or they experiment with diets, and just really normalizing it or minimizing it. Really, they're things that were said to me at different times, and that really it really hurt because it wasn't a phase. And I do describe my eating disorder as having different phases, of a heavily restrictive phase and then a binging phase and a bulimia phase. But what I mean by that is like different stages within the eating disorder. But it wasn't a phase that I just grew out of, or just kind of, yeah, it was so minimizing. And it's so risky to do that to someone, because that's what then solidifies the eating disorder more. It's what allows it to progress, because in those situations, no one was taking it seriously. So it has the opportunity to grow and become even more entrenched. And I think there's a risk of this happening even more for people who are in larger bodies, because there is still that belief that you have to look a certain way to have an eating disorder and be underweight, whatever that actually is, because underweight will really vary depending on the person. But I think that comes into it so much. It's why there's issues with not giving people treatment if unless they have a BMI of under a certain amount or the weigh under a certain amount. Yeah. And it's just, it really makes me sad to think that people do get dismissed and told that it's just a phase that they'll grow out of, especially when younger. And there's a song. There's a song which always makes me think of this.
God, I thought you were going to break into song.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh,
It's like,
no, I could
please don't.
definitely
I
not sing the
can't. I'm
song.
sorry. I'm sorry. I can't. I
Just gonna hit the mic. No, there's this song. It's like a heavy metal song, so I'm definitely not sing it.
okay.
By like a band called Falling in Reverse, and he like screams it in a certain way. My therapist will tell me that I'm going through a phase. It's not a fucking phase. I just want to feel okay. And the way he sings it,
You can
the
feel
way
it.
he said, you can really feel it. It's like this real desperation of longing to be heard, but also at the same time, I think it really highlights so well when he says, I just want to feel okay. It's all people are trying to do when they are using food or their body in these ways. We're all just desperately trying to feel okay. And somehow our brain has decided that's the way we can achieve it, even if it's like tricking us or luring us in with this false promise. That's what we're trying to do. And I just, song really speaks to me, and it really speaks to this point of being misunderstood. So go and listen to it, guys.
I'll listen to it after this. Don't worry, I will.
I don't actually think I've said the name of the song. I'll put it in the show notes.
Please do. Yeah, I hear you. That frustration,
Mm.
especially when like you and I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for me, I could feel my binging escalating. I could feel things getting worse. I could feel things getting more out of control, and I felt like things were getting out of hand. And so when people are minimizing your experience, you're eroding the self-doubt. You're eroding the self-trust because someone else is denying your lived experience, what you're going through, what you know of yourself, and someone's turning around and saying, no, that's not true. And I think that chips away at you. And then you find yourself just accepting these circumstances or feeling like if it's a phase, it's something you should be able to pull yourself out of or just find a way out of. Oh, just one day I'll just wake up and it just won't happen anymore. But how long is this phase going to last? Is this the next 6 months? Is this 2 weeks? What is this? It's that denying someone's experience. Oh, it's infuriating.
It can be really harmful because for me, in that case of having gone through sexual trauma and experiencing the aftermath of that and noticing my binging and purging is getting worse and worse, as in it's getting more intense more often. The binges are getting bigger. The purges are becoming more physically taxing on my body. And I could see that and feel that happening to myself, and then trying to communicate that and people responding with the perspective of it's just a reaction to the trauma, so just give it time, it'll pass. Eroding away at that sense of self-trust that you say. I didn't have much self-trust because I was doubting everything about who I was in life. So then when I'm trying to say, I can see this as a problem and that's not being acknowledged, that chipped away at maybe like a little bit that I had left that was trying to say, I trust myself that this is not great for me right now. Yeah. Well, we've talked a lot.
I'm just looking at my notes, and if anyone's watching the YouTube, they probably think that I'm just like, just browsing the web. Oh my God, who says that? No one says that. Browsing the web.
You have fully entered your middle-aged era. Do you know what I have?
Thank you.
We're going to show you why. So if anyone that's listening, you won't be able to see this, but I will give you.
You've got a flip case on your phone.
I will give you a. Oh my gosh, no, I haven't. Not yet. Not yet. It will happen. But I am about to uncase it so everyone can see on YouTube.
Is that a binocular?
It's a binocular, yes.
A single binocular?
It's my second set of binoculars now because I have fully embraced the hobby of bird watching, and this one is better than my last one.
Was it expensive, Becca?
To be honest, Will bought me it as a present, so what a keeper.
You two are meant to be.
He's encouraging.
I love that for you, though. I don't have the patience for
Good.
bird watching.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's so exciting.
Just the thought of it makes me feel a bit agitated. Maybe I need to
You know
work
what
on that.
Do you know what I've noticed though? It really makes me much more connected to nature. So if I go for a walk along the canal or the park or something, I find myself just much more aware of the nature around me. And
I just need to apologize because I just eye rolled when you said connected to nature, and I didn't mean to. It was an automatic thing because there's something about that phrase that for some reason made me eye roll. Oh God, I don't know why.
it's okay, Katie. I just feel really misunderstood right now.
I'm so sorry. I'm not great in nature because I don't like being cold. I like the idea of it. My mum is a walker, so she's always, oh, guys should go for a walk. I'm like, mm.
It's all right. You don't have
We
to
will
love nature.
go for a walk if we then end up in a pub and I can have some chips.
That's the best bit.
Which
Going for a
totally
really
counts.
nice long hike, finding a nice cozy pub, sit by the fire, some chunky chips and
See?
cider.
We understand each other, Becca. We get each other.
I'll do the walk and then I'll meet you at the pub if you don't want the nature bit.
And I'll have already gone through one bowl of chips, but I'll order another one and then we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Well,
that's everything that I made notes on.
mhm. I suppose I haven't spoken about the areas that I think you can feel misunderstood as you're going through recovery, being recovered. Because we've spoken more about the experience of living with an eating disorder and feeling misunderstood. Did you feel any kind of feelings of misunderstood as you were actually in the active recovery stage and things were changing for you, or you decided to feel recovered?
I felt misunderstood when I did the all-in approach. So I was going through like a refeeding phase off the back of what would have been heavy physical and mental restriction, and feeling like people in my close circle probably looking at me being like, you don't look like someone that needs refeeding. Like, you don't look like someone who should be eating every 3 hours and eating in a surplus and actively putting on weight as a result of that. I felt people would think you don't look like someone who has been restricting. So the weight gain and the way that you're eating doesn't seem justified. Whether that's just me projecting my own assumptions of people and my insecurities and how I felt. I never experienced anyone making any comments, but you know when people look you up and down and you're like, I know you're taking me in right now. I know my body's changed. I know I look different. I know you're taking me in. That kind of thing would feel like that. And also, oh my God, there was something else I was going to say. It totally left my brain. What was I saying?
I was going to say whether it was actually real coming from people or whether it was like,
because I
feel
felt like I had to
perceived.
overjust. I felt like I wanted to tell everyone, people that I didn't even really know. I'm recovering from an eating disorder because this is binge eating and this is what happens when you mentally and physically restrict. I feel like I wanted to give people a proper rundown and explain myself to potentially avoid them having their own opinions of me and me putting on weight and my body changing.
Which I think's definitely what we can all do. If you're feeling misunderstood by people, or even just the perceived being misunderstood or the fear of being misunderstood. So it might not even actually be there, but the fear of it happening, we do go into over explaining mode, don't we?
What about you?
We want to make sure that everyone's got all the information they need.
I know, it's like I needed a little card to hand out to people. I was like, sorry, yeah. What about you?
I felt a bit misunderstood and still can do at times in two sort of ways. One was as I moved away from diet culture and into a non-diet sort of mentality and embraced intuitive eating or aspects of intuitive eating anyway, I felt quite like people quite misunderstood with that in the sense that people didn't really get it or get what I was doing. And I encountered sort of questions or comments like, oh, so now you're just saying everyone who's fat's healthy. Yeah. Like with a real defensive kind of, I'm ready for an argument about this. And I would find myself getting into these tussles with people where
Heated
I'd be like,
debate.
yeah, where I'd feel like I would be trying to defend my perspective and being like, I'm not saying everyone who's fat is healthy, but I'm saying that not everyone who's thin is healthy. I'm saying that you cannot tell someone's health based on their body. That's what I'm saying. So
Mm.
don't misinterpret whatever it is that I'm saying. Don't put your lens onto what it is I'm doing. Or people, similarly with the intuitive eating, people would be like, intuitive eating doesn't work because if I just ate whatever I want, whenever I want, I would just eat quote unquote junk food all the time.
Mhm.
And again, I'd get into these like puzzles of being like, but that's not what intuitive eating is. It's actually a whole framework. There's principles to it. And trying to explain myself or defend myself or even get into these arguments. And that made me feel like I don't get it. Like
Mm.
I've seen this lens of diet culture and I've lifted it. Like
Mhm.
I've took away that lens and I'm seeing something else. And it's something else that's much more like healthy for me in all aspects, like physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And I get why are people attacking that? Like
Mm.
why are you attacking something that's helping another person? And at the same time, there was probably part of me that was a bit like, why can you not see it? Which is ironic because obviously I didn't see it for a very long time. So
Mhm. Yeah.
pot calling the kettle black there, really. But yeah, that's where I got misunderstood and got into these debates. And I think the only thing that helped me with that in terms of not feeling that kind of frustration from people not understanding it was actually the learning it's okay to have different perspectives. I
Mm.
can think one thing, you can think another thing. It's not you asking me that is not necessarily a personal attack on me at all.
Mhm.
And also trying to why someone might say those things. Um, and instead of getting into the defensiveness of answering those questions, asking them questions about what is it that you know about intuitive eating? Like maybe we can
Mhm.
discuss that and see what it is that we both know about it and what we both agree or what we disagree on and things like that, rather than just seeing it as an attack and an argument.
Would you say, because for me, I'd say it's been a process. Like in the beginning, in the very early stages, I felt like I need people to agree with me because this is scary and this doesn't feel solid yet. And so people not agreeing with me sends me into a spiral of doubt of, oh God, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. Because you do feel like you're the black sheep, don't you? You're the one going in the opposite direction to everyone else. I need other people to hold my hand and stand here with me. So I'm not just on my own. And then I go through the phase of feeling pretty firm in it because I'm living the benefits of the experience of it. I'm experiencing food freedom. I know what it's like to go about my day living in my body versus focusing on how my body looks. And that feels solid. And then I went through a phase of getting quite angry and irate about it. I could feel myself getting really wound up. And I would say now I'm at a stage where similar to probably where you are, where I can separate. I mean, depending on the context, like I don't even really comment. It's the practice of letting it go over me because I'm like,
Mhm.
there's certain people where you're just like, I know this is just wasting my energy. It's easier for me to just let you have your thing because I'm never gonna change your opinion. What you have is yours. And coming back to what made sense for me, and that being the most important thing, and feeling far more secure in that, which is where I am today, where if it doesn't work for you, if that's your opinion, that's fine, that's great. Mine's different, and that's okay. I don't need
Yeah.
you to agree with me in order to feel okay with what
Yeah.
I'm doing.
Yeah. I think, yes, I've definitely gone through that, being really attached to the kind of anti-diet side of things and feeling like it was my responsibility to fight that corner kind of thing. And then moving away from that. And I'll be honest, like this overall, it doesn't, if someone has a different opinion to me, that's fine. Sometimes if it's somebody who is quite close to me and knows me quite well and knows my history of an eating disorder, it can irritate me a little bit if they make certain comments, because I
Especially if it's
sometimes think,
damaging, isn't
I
it?
think a little bit insensitive, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't your intentions. Okay, let's
Mhm.
move on. But yeah, realizing, one, it's not my responsibility to educate people, just random people who make comments about body or food and stuff. That's not my responsibility. And also, too, if I was to take that on as my responsibility, I'm then saying my opinion is right and I'm better than you and I'm
Mhm.
superior, which actually I would just be then being as bad as another person saying that to me, which would annoy me.
Yes.
Don't know if I've worded that
Yes.
very clearly, but that helped in moving away from that and feeling less wound up by that misunderstanding.
Yeah. I think certain comments, like diet related comments, when people make comments like, "Oh, or what is it? Once on the lips, forever on the hips," or things like that. I can let that wash over me. When things become offensive, then I can get feisty. Just wanted to put that out there.
Feisty. We're
There
all
is a
waiting
time
to
and a
see
place.
this feisty side of. I said feisty, I meant feisty, not a feisty side of Katie.
Do
Feisty
you know what?
side of
I
Katie.
would, in fact, no, I'm not even going to tell you that story because it's boring and it doesn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense to listen to. But my mum said I was feisty today, and she never calls me feisty. It's normally my twin that's feisty, so I was quite proud of that,
Oh,
and I was quite feisty.
congratulations on being feisty.
Thanks.
We should probably wrap up there.
Yeah, we will wrap it up, and we will see you guys in the next one. And thanks
Yeah,
for
see you
listening.
guys. Thank you for listening.